So let's be honest with ourselves. There's one reason, and one reason only, as to why we find the Lair of Darkness deck fun. And that's the look of sheer confusion on your opponent's face when you just start picking up their cards in dead silence and putting them in the graveyard without needing to announce anything first. I can guarantee you that, if they haven't fought the deck before, they'll start protesting when you just start dumping their stuff in the graveyard, but you can just be like, shh, it's already happened. It was a cost. So to get anyone up to speed who doesn't know this deck, you basically have a field spell, Lair of Darkness, which allows you to tribute an opponent's monster as a cost once per turn. With that, you run a bunch of cards that tribute monsters for cost, like the Lady of Lament. It's a fairly slow deck, but since it also makes everything on the field into a archetype, you can also speed stuff up by using Super Poly to turn their boards into one of many flavours of plant dragons. So why make a Lair of Darkness deck now? Well, it received a few new pieces of support, both direct and indirect, which helps spice the deck up a little. Which is good because, like I said, the deck is pretty slow otherwise, so anything that can help end a duel before your opponent recovers their resources is very welcome. The first piece of support, and perhaps the most obvious one, is Alice, Lady of Lament. And no, I'm totally not making this deck profile just because there's a card called Alice now, I promise. Okay, maybe I lied, but it's as good of a reason as any, right? Anyway, this card has a few effects, and they're all a bit niche, but at least one of them should be useful at any one time. The first effect, which activates on normal summon, is the hardest to make good use of, but potentially the most powerful. It targets a Lady of Lament in your graveyard and then special summons it. It means that Lady of Lament is a real archetype now, which is kind of neat. Anyway, you usually won't have one in the graveyard without having already used your normal summon, so it probably is only going to be live from turn 2 onwards. But if you can use it, it combos well with the last effect, so it's a good recovery play. Its second effect is quite interesting. At a cost of banishing a trap from your hand or graveyard, you can special summon this card. Banishing from your hand isn't that great, it's true, but since we also have Malice, Lady of Lament, you can then add it back, it's not like it's gone forever. It's more useful as a way to get rid of cards that you've already used up, like a trap trick, to get extra tribute materials on the field. Now you may be thinking, but don't you want to tribute your opponent's monsters? That is mostly true, but one of the reasons Lair of Darkness is such a slow deck is because usually you'd run out of resources if you started tributing your own stuff. However, this card helps change that, thanks to it either special summoning itself or summoning other resources back. This is made even stronger with its third effect, which says that, when it's tributed, you can search a fiend with a combined attack and defense of 2000. So who will you be searching? None other than everyone's favourite and most powerful card, Dark Artist. That's right baby, Dark Artist Turbo, here we come. But more seriously, just search Lilith for next turn, to give yourself another tribute and an extra trap. So to sum it up, you now have a way to recycle resources, while giving yourself more tribute materials that actually want to be tributed, unlike most of the other cards in this deck. This will speed the deck up quite a lot, and make you less reliant on needing to top deck something great in order to win. So what's the other support? Well, there's this fairly overlooked card that was also released in Battle of Chaos called Epigonen, the Impersonation Invader. What makes this card relevant to the deck is how it tributes a monster for cost, but does so from the hand, meaning it's a lot harder to stop. So with Lair of Darkness on the field, it's more like a traditional kaiju, appearing out of nowhere to tribute for cost, except it's way better since you get to not only summon it to your field, but it also creates a token for you. Being a level 7, this opens up making the Black Luster Soldier link and getting its full protection, as long as you have any other monsters on the field. This gives the deck easy access to an untargetable, indestructible monster that can banish your opponent's cards, all at the cost of one of your opponent's monsters, and so again, this will really help speed up the deck. Finally, the last piece of support is a card that you're probably already familiar with by now, Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Besides the obvious benefits of back row protection and being a huge beatstick in an otherwise weak deck, it has two fun quirks that make it work really well in Lair of Darkness. First of all, it's another card that can search Lair of Darkness, So if it gets destroyed, you can then use this to get another copy from your deck, using Metaverse to dodge needing to send it to the graveyard in the end phase. What if you already have Lair of Darkness? Well, you can search, oh I don't know, how about Super Polymerization to take out your opponent's entire board? Having Super Poly searchable is amazing, so unless you really need another copy of Lair of Darkness, searching a board breaker this powerful will usually be your best choice. Secondly, Arima, the card known for basically being another copy of Lair of Darkness, actually has a second effect that allows it to search a dark monster with over 2500 defense. This card does fit that description, so by being searchable you have more access to it and all the benefits that it gives you. So those are the new cards that help out the Lair of Darkness deck. It's still probably rogue at best, but thanks to it actually being able to combo off a bit now, as well as having a good mix of cards that are good going first and second, it's now a lot more able to actually keep up with modern decks. But you don't need to take my word for it, let's just have a look at the deck itself. So here it is, a modern Lair of Darkness deck. Starting with the monsters, we have 3 Lord of the Heavenly Prison for the reasons I just went over, and then 2 Darkus Diabolos, who's still a fairly good boss monster for the deck. We then have 3 Epigonen, your new Kaiju and Soldier of Chaos enabler. Then, as usual for the deck, since the searching it provides is invaluable, for your Lady of Laments, run 3 Lilith, 3 Alice, and then 1 Malice. Lilith is still probably the best one, with its tributes being a quick effect that gains you resources, and then Alice is at 3 since, like I said earlier, it really speeds up the deck. Malice is only at 1 since requiring 2 tributes makes it harder to use. You can just search it with Alice now anyway. In case you didn't know, it's a great card to use after using a trap trick, since you can then add the card you banished for trap trick's cost, basically turning it into a double search. Tour Guide is mostly a way to get more stuff on the field. Lilith can still tribute as a cost even when its effects are negated, or you could summon Alice and then tribute her with something else to get the search. It also helps you make your Link monsters, or even our rank 3 of choice. It's just a good normal summon to have, so I think it's still worth it. Now for the spells. To start off, we have Monster Gate, a card so powerful and scary that Konami decided they needed to limit it. Seriously, I'm not quite sure why they did that, but it's probably not because of this deck. It's still fairly good though, especially as a card to use when going second, and it will get you some more materials or a search if you tributed Alice. Super Poly is incredible in this deck, giving you a way to break boards a lot more easily, and a way to actually make use of your extra deck. By having Lair of Darkness on the field, all of your opponent's monsters will become Dark attribute, so they're easy targets for Super Poly. You also run a few other things to hopefully take apart boards even if you don't have Lair on the field. It even makes good use of the tokens you'll be spawning with Lair of Darkness by making Thirst of the Dragons. So even if you end up giving your opponents a bunch of tokens, you can then just take them away again thanks to this. Run 3 Lair of Darkness since the deck doesn't work without it at all. Run a 4th one with Terraforming as well. You really do want as many ways to search this card as possible, so together with Arima and Metaverse, you've basically got 8 copies, and then 3 more if you want to count Lord. Trust me, it's not overkill, because you really don't want to just lose to MST. Now for our traps. The Lady of Laments work with the traps specifically, which is what makes committing to a going second build not quite as viable. But it also makes these traps way more searchable and recyclable. Infinite Impermanence is a decent trap that also doubles as a hand trap, so it will be good either way. Then we also have 3 Ballista Squad, which is simple but powerful. Tribute an opponent's monster for cost, to then destroy anything on the field, including their back row. Even if you don't have Lair on the field, it's fairly easy to tribute a token or an Alice, so it's rarely a dead card. You run 3 to ensure that you can search one with Lilith. Then we have 2 Trap Trick as extra copies of our traps, and as a good way to make use of Malice's effect recycling the banished traps. Then we have Eradicator Epidemic Virus, which I know might sound questionable due to its cost, but hear me out. Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer has just enough attack to be a target for this, and that card is played in all kinds of decks, so as this you'll have a good answer to it. What's more is that, since it will tribute it for cost, they won't have time to respond by having it destroy itself, and so they won't be able to revive it during the next standby phase. Then if you're playing against something like Sky Striker DPE, declaring spells will rip apart their hand and field, giving you a huge swing and advantage. Replace it with something else if you want, but as long as DP is meta, it'll be a fairly good choice. Now for your extra deck, you actually have quite a few options that makes the deck a lot more versatile, so let's take a look at them. First up is your Super Poly targets, which are the 3 Predaplant fusions, First of the Dragons and then Mud Dragon of the Swamp. The Predaplants are best with Lair of Darkness on the field since they use dark types, with Draco's Depelia using a fusion monster like DPE to give you access to a monster as a quick effect negate. Trofeo Vertum takes more materials, but it's basically a Solemn Judgment on legs, so that can be incredibly strong if you can get it out too. First of the Dragons uses the tokens to good effect, giving you a fairly hard to out monster in exchange, while Mud Dragon just gives you more flexibility with your targets. Cicada King is a rank 3 that you might have seen in a B-Trooper deck, but it's not actually too bad here either, basically just giving you a targeted negate. You don't need any insects to make it work, so it's just a fine use of an extra tour guide or Lady of Lament. Heliopolis can be made with Diabolos and the Starving Venom, and contribute something as a cost, then destroy a bunch of cards without targeting. It's strong if you can pull it off, but if you want something a bit more traditional, you can just go as a Hope Harbinger. Then you have the usual links, with both of the good Nightmares, a Link Spider to turn a token into an effect monster, Access Code to try and go for game, and then Verti to send a Super Poly from the deck if your opponent doesn't have any negates left. Then we have Soldier of Chaos, who's now easy to make thanks to Epigonen. This makes your board a lot more threatening, so it's usually the right choice to make if you can resolve Epigonen's summon. Finally, these last 2 links give your field spell some protection. Barricade Borg does it just by existing, while Beat Cop contributes something to then protect your Lair of Darkness by placing a counter on it. You'll probably want to make one of these if you have the resources, if you know you're playing against something that does have spell destruction. Now, since this is a deck that has a lot of room for customization, I've gone and included a bunch of options to make this deck more in tune with however you want to play it. First up are these 3 monsters, who are also Super Poly targets, but are just a bit too specific to include in this real deck. I do think that, if you know you'll probably be facing a deck that can make one of these, for example at a small locals or just as a side deck option, you can then include them to make Super Poly less reliant on Lair of Darkness actually being on the field. Then we have Pot of Prosperity, which can dig for a Lair of Darkness or a Super Poly. Run it if you have it, but otherwise it's just a bit too expensive and limits your extra deck options a bit too much for it to really be worth it. Then there's Back to the Front, a card that everyone seems to run in Lair of Darkness decks. Sure, it's searchable Revival, but now that we have Alice to speed the deck up, and search other copies of Lilith, I don't really think it's necessary anymore. Token Collector is worth a mention since it's actually searchable off of Alice's 3rd effect, and can gain quite a lot of attack thanks to Lair spawning a bunch of tokens. It does then stop you from making any more tokens though, which is a double-edged sword. Probably worth a side deck inclusion for the Sword Soul matchup at the very least. Then we have Skill Drain at 3 now. It definitely has its merits in this deck, and Lilith still works well under Skill Drain, but it does prevent a lot of the cooler interactions of this deck from working. So again, it's a mixed bag, and really it depends on if you want to be winning slowly from floodgates or not. It also makes your extra deck cards like Soldier of Chaos a lot worse, so at that point you might as well just be playing old Lair of Darkness builds. Anyway, that's the deck. Now onto the combo section. So now I'll be going over some test hands with this deck, but first, if you've been enjoying the video so far, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Anyway, this section won't be as long as usual, since it's a deck that relies on interacting with your opponent's specific endboards, so test hands won't show off as well as it would for a combo deck. There are a few cool interactions that you can do now though, so I'll be showing you those. This first one here is to show Epigonen on turn 1, which can still be fairly strong. Start by special summoning Alice by discarding a trap, and then normal summon anything else. Epigonen can then tribute Alice, giving you a search as well as 2 more materials on the field. It also triggers Diabolos in your hand, which special summons itself. With the other materials, you can make a Blackluster Soldier Link, who then has full protection, and it also gives you a Lilith ready to go for next turn. This second one shows you the synergy between Tour Guide and Epigonen. Start by playing Lair, and then normal summon a Tour Guide to get an Alice. Then you can tribute Alice with Epigonen, once again getting a search, 2 materials, and a Diabolos. This time, however, we contribute a token with Diabolos, forcing your opponent to place a card from their hand back into their deck. With your 3 remaining monsters, make a Soldier of Chaos and then set Ballista Squad and get your end phase tokens. Now during your opponent's turn, when they have 2 cards on the field, you can either tribute one of your tokens for a cost to destroy one card but then get Diabolos back, or tribute one of their monsters to destroy a second card. In this third one, I want to show you what you can do if you can't get Lair of Darkness despite its many searches. Start with a tour guide, summoning Alice, and then tributing her with Monster Gate to get a Search of Malice as well as another material. Reveal Lord of the Heavenly Prison, and then tribute Tour Guide with Epigonen to get 3 monsters out. Set Imperm and make your Soldier of Chaos before passing turn. Now on your opponent's turn, after negating anything they summon with Imperm, you can summon Lord, who can then set a Metaverse. On your turn, you can use the set Metaverse to activate Lair, and then normal summon the Malice you searched before. She can tribute herself and an opponent's monster to get a trap milled by Monster Gate back onto your field, and then, in your end phase, you'll spawn some tokens as fodder for Ballista Squad if necessary, as well as seeing that Lair of Darkness doesn't send itself to the graveyard since you search Metaverse instead of Lair itself was Lord. So that's the deck. Are you planning on updating your Lair of Darkness deck? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Special thanks to my tier 2 patrons Jason Moa and Violet Rain. The link to that is in the description. Thanks for watching.